What is up, guys? So today I am here to talk to you about The Walking Dead Season 3. Now, literally moments ago, I just completed episode 5 of Season 3, and I want to take a look back over Season 3 and discuss why, personally, I feel like it's one of the worst seasons out of the entire lot. So unlike the first two Walking Dead seasons where it is heavily focusing on Clementine's story, the third season decides to take a little bit of a twist and we focus on Javi and his family instead. Now, of course, Clementine is in season 3, but she's not really, in my opinion, a main character, more of a sub-character. Now, I have to wonder if that was because they wanted us to believe that at any moment, Clementine could potentially be killed off. Whereas in the previous seasons, you knew that Clementine would never be killed off as she was your main character. So the story of season 3 tends to focus more on Javi and his family and their quest to survive. And of course, we come across the brother and other family members along the way. I want to try and not make this too negative, I just want it to be honest, but when I look back on season 1 and 2 of The Walking Dead, it didn't feel as linear as season 3. Season 3, you barely even got to walk around. A lot of it was just very much an interactive story with quick times, whereas the first two Walking Deads, you actually got to do a lot more walking about, you got to do a lot more searching, and personally, you actually got to get to know your characters a lot more. So of course, the choices you make throughout, they do impact the story a little bit, but ultimately the story is going to end the way it's going to end. And if you say, for example, choose one character over another character, they will both die at some point. That much is a given. So it really in a way makes you feel like you don't have much of a choice, you're just choosing at that time, but both characters, their fate is already determined. What I loved originally about The Walking Dead, now don't get me wrong, I will always be a massive fan of Lee. Lee is my favorite character, and then Kenny. I know Kenny got a lot of stick throughout The Walking Dead. There was a lot of people that didn't really like his character, but personally, I loved his character, and it told a story throughout every single season. And the way they just decided to kill off Kenny and Jane in the third season, I resented it so much, because you have gone through so much with these characters in the earlier seasons, especially Kenny, and regardless to what you did in those first two seasons, he was gonna die. But not only that, he died in such a stupid way as well. It felt like they were like, oh no, darn, we've got Jane and we've got Kenny, and we just need to get rid of them, basically, in this third season. So why make the choices so important throughout The Walking Dead 1 and 2 if you're just gonna get rid of these characters in such silly events? Every single character in the early Walking Dead series had so much depth to them. Whether it was Lee, Kenny, even Ben, Carly, anybody, they all had so much depth to them. And what I loved about the first season of The Walking Dead is that everything you did in the earlier episodes actually had a pretty big consequence later on. So for example, at the end of episode 4, you had the choice as to whether certain members of the group were going to come with Lee after he gets bitten, or if, depending on your actions throughout the earlier episodes, if they're just going to leave him to go on his own. And there was a lot of differences in episode 5 depending on what you did. Now, in season 3, that just doesn't feel like that is the case at all. Because again, regardless, they will end up just dying a little bit later on in that episode, or probably the next episode. And the difference and the reason why I played The Walking Dead 1 and 2 so much was because it actually felt like your choices mattered in some way, and it actually felt like you were influencing the game. And I just didn't feel that in the third one at all. Something else that we were discussing as well is Gabe's character. Now, of course, the outbreak in season 3 happened at the same time as season 1. So how come Clementine managed to fight, but yet Gabe was completely useless up until episode 5? Now, I don't know if that was because Kate had sheltered him in some way. They didn't want them to know just how bad it was. But it definitely feels like they didn't really advance Gabe's character very much. And obviously the little girl, she died at the end of the first episode, so that was kind of pointless anyway. It was nice to see Jesus come back at the end of episode 5 today, I did think that his character was really strong, quite smart as well. So to know that he came back and sort of saved the day, that was pretty awesome. So like The Walking Dead season 2, season 3 ended in sort of a similar way where there was a lot of different characters that could potentially die depending on your choices. But again, it feels like at the end of season 3 that like that's it, done now. And we didn't find out any more about AJ. It did come up at the end of season 3 that, you know, Clementine's story will continue. I don't know, when this game was advertised at E3 last year, they focused so heavily on Clementine's character. And even though Javi was in the trailer, he was always seen to be like a sub-character. And I feel like they were marketing this game to be all about Clementine. And then as soon as the game came out, Clementine was barely in the episodes. So while I understand that they were trying to do something different, personally I feel like I wanted more Clementine. I understand that she's now in a position where she is so badass because she's been doing this since she was a little girl, but there was a few scenes in season 3 where, for example, she finally gets her period. You see her having motherly qualities because of AJ, and I wanted to see more of that. And if anything, in the first couple of episodes, I would have liked it if they didn't introduce Javi and maybe they actually just kept it as Kenny and Clementine and AJ, and then say at the end of episode 1 you killed off Kenny or Jane, depending on who you chose. I feel like that would have been a much better way to then introduce the other characters, rather than doing these half-arsed flashbacks. I mean, they didn't even look like the characters from the previous series, and it just feels like they didn't really care by that point. They just wanted to throw these new characters in our face, and they're not really too bothered about the ones that we already know and love so much. So putting all the negativity aside for a second, I did really enjoy season 3. I really loved the fact that Javi ended up getting with Kate, and we saw in episode 5 everything finally blew up. I was really sad actually because I went against what the father said in the beginning of the episode, and I did fight with my brother, and I tried for so long not to fight with him, but I ended up doing that in the end, so I was a little bit disappointed. But for me, I chose to go after Gabe. Now, I do know that Gabe was one of the ones that could potentially die in episode 5, but luckily that didn't happen for me. So again, that's very cool that come the end, you could save different characters, and that is very old school, like The Walking Dead. But I don't know what it is, I just feel like in this season, I never really gravitated to anybody again except for Clementine, and if anything had happened to Clementine in season 3, I think it would have been absolutely devastating, but I feel like I didn't get enough of Clementine in season 3, and I just felt like even her voice acting was off as well. Like, I just felt like she was just cold all the time, and everything she said was just completely dead and expressionless, and that's not the Clementine that we know and love. So overall, looking back on The Walking Dead, I would still say the first season of The Walking Dead is my favorite because every single character, even the bad characters, had depth, and it felt more like your choices that you were going to make did have an impact on the characters, and it had an impact on Lee. Same kind of with the second season, but it was still a little bit more linear. But as for season 3, I just felt like everything I did was going to lead to the same outcome anyway, and I was left feeling a little bit disappointed. But I want to know what you guys thought about The Walking Dead season 3. Let me know in the comment section, and as for me, I will see you all in the next video. Bye!
You have to take care of each other before it's too late.
Oh, God! Kate! Where's Kate? She's gone. We're in a war. We're never going home.
I've been here before. It's not gonna end well for everyone.
Fight. Fight for our name. For our family. I hardly have any family left. Time for you to finally learn what blood really means! What do you have to say for yourself, brother?